I thought local councils were here for helping local residents with their roads, rates, rubbish, that sort of stuff. But some of these councillors seem to think they're in charge of Australia's foreign policy as well. Melbourne's Merri-bek City Council, which used to be Moreland City Council until it was given an Aboriginal name, as is the way we have a Socialist Alliance sort of group of councillors, it's tomorrow going to meet to tell the Albanese government, to tell the Israeli government that the war in Gaza has got to stop. Joining me is Rowan Dean, editor of The Spectator Australia and host of Outsiders here on Sky News every Sunday at 9 a.m. and going gangbusters. Rowan Dean, are you happy for Merri-bek College to put in its 2 cents worth on foreign affairs?
Well, it's about time, Andrew. I mean, what took them so long? I mean, this is a really important international development. And people around the world should look to Merri-bek Council tomorrow for their Greens meeting and hear exactly what they have to say. Because what I'm hoping is that the councillors, the Green councillors of Merri-bek, it used to be called Moreland, by the way, in Melbourne, but it's now Merri-bek. But the councillors of Merri-bek tomorrow, what I want them to decide, Andrew, clearly they're upset. They're calling for the Israelis to stop the Israeli bombardment or whatever of Gaza. I think a much better idea would be for the councillors to offer to do a trade with Hamas, so that the councillors would go over to Gaza and help out and do whatever they can in Gaza, and Hamas, a select group of Hamas, the same number as on the council, would come to Melbourne, and then they could go around, for example, collecting the rubbish bins. So as they went round Merri-bek or Moreland, collecting the rubbish bins, they could shoot a few dogs, they could rape a few women as they're putting out the bins. Then they could fix some potholes, which is what councillors do. As they're fixing the potholes, they could, shoot up a few houses. They could go in, cut off a few people's limbs. They could behave as Hamas always behaves when given the opportunity. So I think it's a terrific opportunity for a cultural exchange. Andrew, and I look forward to the councillors of Merri-bek arriving in Gaza and helping the Hamas cope with the situation they find themselves in.
The raping the women is a bit much there, but I've got to say, Rowan, I prefer that the councillors of Merri-bek do a very great thing by suggesting that one of them, just one of them, and maybe all of them, offer themselves as hostages in place of the 250 Jews that Hamas holds. And then they
I think that's an excellent idea, Andrew. I think that's spot on. Absolutely.
They would have such an education as well. It'd be marvellous. I couldn't wait for them to come back, if indeed they ever do, to tell us what marvellous hosts Hamas are.
Exactly.
But listen,
100%,
something that
Andrew.
worries me a little more, just as much actually, stunned me, in fact, when I read it today. A kindergarten in a town in East Germany doesn't want to be named after Anne Frank anymore. That's the Dutch-Jewish girl who wrote that famous story about hiding from the Nazis for 2 years until her family was betrayed and she died in a concentration camp just 15 years old. Now, the head of the kindergarten says, well, the name of the school now is too hard to explain to children when so many of them are from immigrant families. And she wanted a name that was more inclusive. What does this tell you?
Well, I think this is symptomatic. It's really disturbing, and particularly only a few weeks after. So, as you said, the story of Anne Frank, every child should learn that story. In the West, we value resilience, we value heroes, we value people who fought against evil, survived against evil. The story of Anne Frank, I mean, I remember as a child going to Amsterdam to the house. It's one of the great stories all children should learn. A young innocent girl who survives against evil, survives against the odds, and actually records her experiences during that terrifying period. Well, what a surprise. It's only, we never thought we would see that again. Never again was the promise. But in fact, we've just seen in the last month, as I was just saying earlier, in Israel itself, we've seen Jewish children hiding in attics and safe rooms, and being butchered by people every bit as bad as the Gestapo or the SS. So the story is more relevant than it's ever been. It's a story that gives faith, gives hope, sheds light. And to ban that story or to say that we're discarding that story because of diversity and inclusion just gives the lie, Andrew, to everything we've ever been told about diversity and inclusion everything that the woke multiculturalism has tried to do, it's a lie. It only works one way. There is basically inclusion means exclusion. We will exclude this wonderful story of a Jewish girl because she's Jewish, and we're in a presumably largely Muslim suburb of Germany.
We don't know if it's Muslim,
we are not
but I have to say,
diverse at all. We have a mono-woke culture which is infusing Western Europe, and the absolute lie that we were given, that multiculturalism meant new cultures would come, we would all be enriched by it. No, it's worked in exactly the opposite way, as we are seeing throughout the world, unfortunately.
Look, I don't know if they're Muslim immigrants. I'm guessing, I'm presuming they might be. I'm wondering who else would be offended or feel excluded by a story of a Jewish girl killed by Germans. And this, you know, it's okay for Germans' children to know that story, even though their countrymen are the villains here, but apparently not these immigrants. It's weird. But the other thing is, this idea, oh, the children don't know about it. Isn't the whole idea about school to teach them what's important?
To tell them.
It's not to adapt to their ignorance. It's to actually teach them what they don't know. I don't get it.
And this is what is happening, Andrew. Throughout the West, we are seeing those heroes, those values that we had, being eradicated in favour of new woke values.
Rowan Dean, you're absolutely true. Turns out that immigration has been an invitation to actually change our culture. Demographics changes the culture, and particularly if you insist, oh, I must now do what the immigrants say because otherwise offence and inclusion. I think it's quite sad what's going on in some parts, particularly Labor politics. Rowan Dean, thank you so much indeed for your time.